Episode 1 of Bon Appétit, Your Majesty begins during the Joseon period. A woman named Young Ji-young is taken to King Yi-hyun, where the guards ask the king to sentence her to death. However, they are surprised when the king appoints her as the head chef of the royal kitchen instead. Now Ji-young inwardly thinks that she needs to survive long enough to go back home. Ji-young then explains how she got in this predicament. A flashback takes us to a French cooking competition taking place in the year 2025. Now Ji-young is one of the participants here whose stove stops working in the last 5 minutes of the competition. She simply creates a makeshift stove from rice straw and finishes cooking just in time. The task here was to cook a royal meal, and she made a venison steak dish from King Yi-hyun's reign during the Joseon era. The dish wins her the competition, which means she will now be the head chef at a Michelin 3-star restaurant. After the competition, Ji-young shares the good news with her father on the phone. He then tells her that a professor friend of his in Paris is sending her a book from the Joseon era for her to deliver to him. Ji-young receives the package and then gets on her flight back to Korea. However, a passenger spills coffee on the package. Ji-young rushes to the toilet to try and fix the damage on the book, which she sees is actually an old recipe book. She reads an inscription on the back where the writer wishes for his loved one to come back to him. At the same time, however, there's a solar eclipse going on outside. This makes the book begin to glow, and Ji-young finds herself sucked into a vortex that drops her in the middle of a forest. She lands in an animal trap of all places and ends up caught in a net, hanging from a tree. Meanwhile, King Yi-hyun is on a hunt in the forest and shoots a deer. Shang-yeon, a chief eunuch, warns him about the rebels who attacked him in the forest the last time, but Yi-hyun doesn't seem concerned. Back in the palace, his grandmother, Queen Dowager Inju, and Yi-hyun's consorts worry about the king being on a hunt during the solar eclipse, since that time period is generally spent on a ritual. Elsewhere in the woods, Ji-young wakes up in the net and panics. Yi-hyun is chasing a fox when his arrows pierce the net and it lets Ji-young out. Now Yi-hyun comes by her and thinks she's a Gwynyo, which is a female ghost. He's about to attack her with his sword when a rebel, hiding in the woods, shoots an arrow at the king. It hits the mark and both Yi-hyun and Ji-young fall off the cliff into the water below. Now Ji-young wakes up on the shore next to Yi-hyun, who is bleeding and unconscious. She ties up his wound, but when he wakes up, he attacks her with a knife again. In the midst of a scuffle, she ends up knocking him out. She ties him up and leads him through the woods, trying to look for a way out of her predicament. We're then introduced to Kang Mok-shu, which happens to be Yi-hyun's junior consort, whom the others seem to blame for the king's erratic behaviour. She wonders why the king hasn't returned yet, and a flashback to 7 years ago show her in prison for killing a nobleman that her mother sold her to. Now Prince Joseon offers her a deal in exchange for her loyalty. Back in the present, the prince and his team discuss the king's disappearance. Now Yi-hyun and Ji-young continue to argue as they walk through the forest together. They come across a small set of empty huts in an area that Yi-hyun has evacuated in order to expand his hunting area. Now Ji-young recalls a tyrant king named Yeon-hui-gun who had this policy, but she doesn't realise that Yi-hyun is actually the same person. She also mentions a Chaehon practice here for which women from all over the country were brought to the palace. Suddenly, Ji-young finds a girl hiding in the house. She turns out to be one of the previous inhabitants of the place. Ji-young explains her situation and agrees to cook dinner for them all. She uses the ingredients in the house to cook a bibimbap along with the butter and gochujang she still had in her coat pocket. Both Yi-hyun and Gil-gyum find it spicy at first but soon grow to enjoy the taste. In fact, the meal actually makes Yi-hyun think of a memory with his mother and even brings him to tears. After the meal, Ji-young and Gil-gyum head out to look for the cliff where she left her bag. On the way, they stop by a stream for Ji-young to wash her hair. This is where Gil-gyum tells Ji-young that she is in the Joseon dynasty. In the meantime, Yi-hyun's men find him and he sends them out to look for Ji-young. The episode then ends with his men finding Yi-young and Gil-gyum by the stream. So episode 1 starts off with high energy but a slow meandering exposition. We start off with a look at Ji-young's exemplary skills as a chef and then move on to the explanation of how she got stuck in the Joseon era. It's all well and good until she and Yi-hyun get stuck together and all the banter and miscommunication between them, because of era-specific language and behaviour of course, is quite funny to start off with. But almost the entire episode is spent on both of them stuck in this pointless argument. Now Yi-hyun keeps trying to convince her that he's the king, while she keeps assuming he's an actor who's way in over his head. This little misunderstanding does become quite repetitive over a while and drags the episode out needlessly. On the flip side, we do get a good introduction to other key characters in the palace and to Yi-hyun's policies like the Chaehon. There are some nice moments as well, like the scene where they have Ji-young's bibimbap for dinner. And with all the gorgeous shots of food here, I think we can expect the series to offer mouth-watering visuals in the future. However, the long sequence of Ji-young and Yi-hyun finding their way back is a bit tedious and starts to show off on shaky ground. Hopefully the episodes ahead can pick up the pace. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.